This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
On either side of them. As to choosing between being a paratrooper, spearheading the offensive, and an ordinary infantryman who could not trust the guy next to him, they decided the greater risk was with the infantry. When the shooting started, they wanted to look up to the guy beside them, not down. They had been kicked around by the Depression, had the scars to show for it. They had grown up, many of them, without enough to eat, with holes in the soles of their shoes, with ragged sweaters, and no car, and often not a radio. Their educations had been cut short, either by the Depression or by the war. Yet with this background I had and still have a great love for my country, Harry Welsh declared 48 years later. Whatever their legitimate complaints about how life had treated them, they had not soured on it, or on their country. They came out of the Depression with many other positive features. They were self-reliant, accustomed to hard work and to taking orders. Through sports or hunting or both, they had gained a sense of self-worth and self-confidence. They knew they were going into great danger. They knew they would be doing more than their part. They resented having to sacrifice years of their youth to a war they never made. They wanted to throw baseballs, not grenades, shoot a .22 rifle, not an M1. But having been caught up in the war, they decided to be as positive as possible in their Army careers. Not that they knew much about Airborne, except that it was new and all volunteer. They had been told that the physical training was tougher than anything they had ever seen, or that any other unit in the Army would undergo, but these young lions were eager for that. They expected that when they were finished with their training, they would be bigger, stronger, tougher than when they started, and they would have gone through the training with the guys who would be fighting beside them. The Depression was over, Carwood Lipton recalled of that summer of 1942, and I was beginning a new life that would change me profoundly. It would all of them. First Lieutenant Herbert Sobel of Chicago was the initial member of E Company, and its CO. His executive officer, XO, was Second Lieutenant Clarence Hester from Northern California. Sobel was Jewish, urban, with a commission from the National Guard. Hester started as a private, then earned his commission from Officer Candidate School, OCS. Most of the platoon and assistant platoon leaders were newly commissioned graduates of OCS, including Second Lieutenants Dick Winters from Pennsylvania, Walter Moore from California's racetracks, and Lewis Nixon from New York City and Yale. S.L. Matheson was an ROTC graduate from UCLA. At 28 years of age, Sobel was the old man in the group. The others were 24 or younger. The company, along with Dog, Fox, and Battalion HQ companies, made up the 2nd Battalion of the 506th PIR. The battalion commander was Major Robert Strayer, a 30-year-old reserve officer. The regimental commander was Colonel Robert Sink, a 1927 West Point graduate. The 506th was an experimental outfit, the first parachute infantry regiment in which the men would take their basic training and their jump training together as a unit. It would be a year before it was attached to the 101st Airborne, the Screaming Eagles. The officers were as new to this paratrooping business as the men. They were teachers who sometimes were not much more than one day ahead of the class. The original NCOs were Old Army. We looked up to them, Private Walter Gordon of Mississippi remembered, as almost like gods because they had their wings. They were qualified jumpers. But hell, if they knew how to do an about-face, they were ahead of us. We were raw recruits. Later, looking back, we regarded them with scorn. They couldn't measure up to our own people who moved up to corporals and sergeants. The first privates in Easy were Frank Perconte, Herman Hansen, Wayne Sisk, and Carwood Lipton. Within a few days of its formation, Easy had a full complement of 132 men and 8 officers. It was divided into 3 platoons and a headquarters section. There were 3 12-man rifle squads plus a 6-man mortar team squad to a platoon. A light infantry outfit, Easy had 1 machine gun to each of the rifle squads, and a 60mm mortar in each mortar.